Jesus, in his interactions with disciples of religious authorities and people seeking his advice, seemed to thrive on the verbal thrust and parry of a spirited conversation. He seemed to enjoy it, and he was gentle and humble. Well, not so much with the Pharisees, but he did not shy away from from provocative banter either, because those were teaching opportunities. Those were the places where new ideas were born. Jesus was fully human and fully divine, which if you express that in numbers, it adds up to 200%. So I agree, the logic here is a little wonky, but so is the whole idea of incarnation. It's Jesus being God and human at the same time is a knot we're never going to untie. Whether you're new to the faith or been a Christian for many years, it evades our understanding. So, spoiler alert, if you meet an old timer in the faith who claims to understand all this, well, they really don't. And we have the same difficulty putting ourselves in the place of his original audience, interpreting his words as they might. It is nearly impossible. So we are so far removed from that time and culture. Another thing is that we've heard or read these words of Jesus so many times, regarded them as sanctified and holy, which they are. But on another level, they're just one person talking to another person. So let's just loosen our grip on religion for a moment and look at one of the lesser known stories of Jesus talking to a Gentile woman. Just their conversation on a very human level. This is in the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 15, verses 21 through 28. So let's give it a fresh look. Jesus retreated to the land of Canaan for some peace and quiet. He just healed and taught a bunch of people, fed the 5,000, walked on water, and argued with the Pharisees. So it'd been a busy day for him. And he was exhausted, tuckered out. So he was looking for a place to lay low for a while. It so happened that a woman from that area came crying out to him, "Lord, Son of David, have mercy on me. My daughter is suffering terribly from demon possession." Now, you may not be comfortable with the whole idea of demon possession. Not everybody is, and that would be a distraction from this story anyway. We could just say that they didn't know much about mental illness in those days, and that was how they put it. What we can see clearly is that this woman, a Gentile woman in a foreign land, she knew about Jesus, knew enough to call him Lord, the Son of David, knew enough about him to believe he could help her daughter, knew enough to do a little detective work and find out where he was staying. And if you're a parent, you understand that you would do anything to help your child. And after this mother made this tearful plea for Jesus to help her, Jesus responded by saying nothing. He didn't say a word. His disciples were with him and urged him to send her away because she was bothering them. Jesus said to the woman, "Look, I was only sent to the lost sheep of Israel." So on the part of Jesus and the reaction of the disciples, we might conclude that this woman in desperate need was not going to get what she so earnestly wanted. which is so un-Jesus-like. It's always bothered me. And though Jesus didn't respond to her, which this mother might have interpreted as his indifference, she came and knelt before him, saying, "Lord, help me." Jesus looked at the woman. "It's not right to take the children's bread and toss it to the dogs." Now, a word of explanation might be due here. The most cynical interpretation would be that Jesus was calling the woman a dog, but not even the King James Version supports that. Now, dog was a widely used insult that the Jews used, which refers to the Gentiles. But it's totally inconsistent with what else we read about Jesus. And to picture him insulting this weeping woman in great distress over the fate of her daughter. This was, after all, Jesus who told the crowds in the earlier Sermon on the Mount to love their enemies. Aside from that, the form of the word dog that he'd used referred to a little dog, a pet most likely. So if we've thought of a large growling dog ready to pounce, we're mistaken. This wasn't an angry German shepherd. It was more of a beagle begging for scraps. The other part of this metaphor refers to the Jews as children, but if Jesus is referring to a small pet, is an actual child more likely to come to mind? And that's the job of metaphors, to use a word that means something literally but brings to mind something else. Metaphors aside, the next verse has the woman saying, "Yes, Lord, I know," which tells you that she understands that he was a Jewish man sent by a Jewish God to minister to a Jewish audience. She went on, though, "But even the little dogs get crumbs falling from their master's tables." This was a clever and persistent woman. You have to give her that. And then Jesus recognized her great faith, because faith, like love, crosses all of our human-made boundaries. "Woman, your faith is great, and what you have asked is given." And her daughter was healed from that very hour. So that's the story reported in Matthew, and there's a lot to unpack here. But about the nature of Jesus, the nature of faith, I'll leave you with a few questions. Did Jesus somehow know that he was going to meet this particular woman and have this particular conversation? That's one question. Another is, Jesus was at first silent. What do you suppose that was about? A third question, why did the disciples express the attitude that they did? Did Jesus know from the very beginning that he was going to relieve this woman's daughter from her suffering? The disciples were watching and listening to this conversation. Was Jesus teaching them something by letting them draw their own conclusions? Sometimes silence is a means for letting others collect their thoughts. For some, silence is uncomfortable, and they will, having been allowed the time to gather their feelings and process their emotions, tell another person what they're thinking, even if they hadn't intended to do that in the beginning. Even if the act of quietness is awkward and difficult, at first it might push the conversation forward into a meaningful direction. Every quiet spot in a conversation doesn't need to be filled. Listening is a skill that Jesus had mastered. So thank you for joining me. I hope you've got something out of this. I've been reading the Bible a long time, and I've learned this is an approach that really works for me, to read a story and look for the human element in it and ask questions. And if you don't understand something, keep asking that question till you've come up with something. Keep reading commentaries till you've come up with something that makes sense. And not everything's going to make sense. That's just the nature of faith. But I find we have thought about Jesus so long entirely on his spiritual purpose and his spiritual nature that once in a while we step back and we look at Jesus as a human being, and maybe we get a different glimpse of what he was up to. So, again, thank you for joining me today. Sometimes I end by telling you what we're going to talk about next week. I've not the foggiest idea. I'll think of something before then, though. I'll see you.